French officials' backing for the profane cartoons published by satirical weekly magazine Charlie Hebdo. In a statement, he said extremism and insults to the Prophet are driven by international Zionism and global hegemony. He said those supporting such blasphemous moves are doing so under the pretext of freedom of expression. Meanwhile, Lebanese resistance movement Hezbollah also, in a statement, condemned French authorities' anti-Islam stance. The statement called on Paris to respect religious sanctities.
France is among European countries where anti-Islam sentiments have been on the rise over the past years. Those sentiments have intensified further in France after the killing of a history teacher by a young refugee of Chechen origin earlier this month. The teacher had shown defamatory cartoons of Islam's Prophet Muhammad during a class on free speech. Although Muslims have time and again condemned such incidents, the French president has caused fury by defending the slain teacher's move to show the insulting cartoons.
Nous défendrons la liberté.
We will defend the freedom that you taught so well, and we will hold secularism high. We will not give up caricatures, drawings, even if others retreat.
Macron's comments have drawn widespread condemnation from Muslim countries, with the Pakistani premier accusing him of attacking Islam.
It's unfortunate that he has chosen to encourage Islamophobia by attacking Islam rather than the terrorists who carry out violence, be it Muslims, white supremacists, or Nazi ideologists.
The Turkish president has also renewed criticism of his French counterpart over his comments.
The person in charge of France has lost his way recently. He goes on about Erdogan all day. Look at yourself first. And where are you going? I said in Kayseri. He's a case and he really must be checked up.
Ordinary people have also condemned the French president for his anti-Islam stance. Protests have taken place in several countries, while calls are growing for a boycott of French goods.
This is the least we can do in support of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The French people have to respect our religion and our principles. They have freedom of speech in this regard, and we also do have the freedom of speech. They express by cartoons and we express in ceremony. Eventually, we will see who is stronger.
This is not the first time that Macron has made comments against Islam. He has defended a September move by French satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo to reprint the blasphemous cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad. Macron has called Islam a religion in crisis worldwide. Experts believe such anti-Islam stance only promotes Islamophobic attitudes in France and could lead to attacks against Muslims and cost their lives.
Well, I'll be discussing this situation a little bit further for you with guests who join me at this section of the program. Imam Muhammad Ali Elahi, director with Islamic House of Wisdom, joins us via Skype out of Michigan. Of course, I will have the pleasure of speaking to Mr. Kevin Barrett, author and Middle East expert out of Medicine via Skype. He is also a regular contributor to Press TV programs. It's very interesting, gentlemen, that something that could have ended with a simple apology, or if not apology, not taking sides or comments, has grown into this proportion. I'm just going to get some reaction from Imam Muhammad Ali Elahi in Michigan, please.
Thank you. Obviously, the situation is very sad, very disgusting, and is another case of political dishonesty and double standard. I think President Macron is failed in his leadership. Instead of bringing hope and healing and unity for his country and nation, he created this hurricane of hatred and hypocrisy. The whole thing is when a French student killed a French teacher, the Muslim community in France were the first community to condemn that. That was wrong, and the killer himself was killed by Paris police the same day. But then for the President Macron to create this generalization and condemn Islam and Muslim, there is no justification for this. This is obvious manifestation of Islamophobia, racism, and humiliation of a community is wrong. Somebody said that if you insult a black person, that is racism, which is correct. It should be condemned. If you insult a Jewish person, this is anti-Semitism. But now you are denying the holiness of the holiest figure in Islamic tradition, and you call that freedom of expression.
Right.
That is insult. That is to add insult to injury, and that is obviously wrong.
That's a very good point, Imam, that you brought up, and that's the same question actually I'm going to put to Mr. Barrett there. Can we, Mr. Barrett, or can anyone for that matter, say because we have freedom of expression, then if in our country somebody is going to insult the holy things of some other religion, especially under the guise of freedom of speech, and that is the main bone of contention, if I may say so. What do you think about this? Is it any justifiable, given the circumstances and given the killing of the teacher?
Well, the hypocrisy of Macron and other Western leaders is really off the charts. They suppress freedom of speech every day in every way. They jail people for doing heretical historiography about World War II.
Right.
They are currently imprisoning a number of people in France. It looks like Alain Soral is possibly heading for prison. He's been fined huge amounts for saying perfectly reasonable things and simply for retweeting things that are not at all offensive. So as these European leaders crack down on free speech that they don't like, they pretend that the one kind of free speech that matters to them is the right to commit blasphemy against a major religion. And we have to ask ourselves, well, why is that? Now, Macron, who is a stooge of the Rothschild banking cabal, says that Islam is a religion in crisis. In fact, it is New World Order Rothschild Zionism that is a religion in crisis. And the crisis is that the world is waking up and noticing that there is this conspiracy of people involved in all kinds of degenerate debauchery, Satanism, and all kinds of horrific, corrupt, organized crime endeavors, including the creation of most of the world's currency by lending it into existence at interest, that this evil cabal, of whom this Rothschild cabal that Macron is a figurehead in, they're being exposed all over the world, thanks to the internet, which is why there's such a push for censorship. And that's the kind of attack on free speech that is really important. And so they're trying to distract us by going after Islam, which is the religion that most adheres to the principle of banning usury. This criminal cabal that runs the world through its stranglehold on international banking uses usury as its main weapon. And Islam is the biggest force standing in its way. That's why they are waging a war on Islam all over the world. And this propaganda war on Islam in France is part of a war that's been going on now for decades. Of course, September 11th was the biggest public relations stunt to try to discredit Islam, and all of these sort of follow-up incidents, including this very suspicious beheading incident, which happened just days after Macron had launched an incessant series of attacks on Islam. He did that, he began that less than a week before this incident. We have to wonder, is this another propaganda stunt? Did they brainwash this guy and create this beheading for their own purposes? These people, these New World Order people, have a religion of human sacrifice, and this is the sort of thing they love to do. It could very well be a false flag. We have to be aware of what's really going on behind the scenes, which bears very little relationship to the way news is reported in the mainstream.
Exactly. You mentioned false flag, and that's another point. Secretary General of the World Forum for Islamic Awakening, Mr. Ali Akbar Veloyati, first of all, he has denounced this French officials' backing for the profane cartoons. But he has also said that this might as well be driven by international Zionism and the global hegemony. What's your reaction to that? Just like Mr. Barrett pointed out, it might be, we really have to be careful about how the news is reported, and it's very suspicious given the timing and all. To what extent do you think that these larger hands are at work, Imam Muhammad Ali Elahi, that are basically driving the scenario the way it has gone so far?
Obviously, in the political world and especially atmosphere of Islamophobia, everything is possible, as your guest just mentioned. And we know that for them, the ends justify the means. And it is possible that the whole story is just a fake story and using a foolish guy just to create this tornado. It's interesting that if this person, if that French student was not a Muslim, they wouldn't even mention his religion.
Mm-hmm.
I live in Michigan, and you heard that a couple of weeks ago, that extremist group, the domestic terrorists, that they had planned to kidnap and kill our Governor Whitmer.
Sure.
Till now, nobody ever mentioned their religion. Really, nobody said if they are Christian, they are Jewish, no religion at all. But now in this case, somebody does something wrong, and then they insult the entire religion and attack 1.6 billion Muslims. They damage the image and integrity of Muslims who were the first one to condemn this act of violence and terrorism. So unfortunately, politicians like President Macron, they suffer from kind of moral Alzheimer. They don't want to learn a lesson. For this man, instead of taking this opportunity to heal, to educate, to build bridges, to bring relationship, to call for reconciliation and unity, for him, instead to come and say France will not give up Khartoum.
Yeah.
This is so childish reaction. That is really absolutely foolish reaction.
Yes.
And this is the maximum failure of leadership. What is the guilt of those 70 mosques and school or business places to shut down for something else?
That's a very legitimate question you're asking, Imam Muhammad Ali Elahi. And, because we're about to finish this interview with, I got 1 minute. I'm just going to get back to Mr. Barrett for this, if he's still with us. Under 1 minute, Mr. Barrett, and I guess the core question would be, who is benefiting from this? Is it Macron or his government or France that is benefiting from this? Or perhaps somebody somewhere else who's benefiting from this and, is in cohorts with the government of President Macron? Under 1 minute, please, if you can, Mr. Barrett.
Politically from this, as I said, he launched a verbal war on Islam just a few days before this all too convenient beheading. And these radical Muslims, so-called in France, who were involved in things like the Charlie Hebdo affair, the Mohammed Merah affair, and similar incidents, are always seemingly people who are brainwashed in prison. In some cases, they're petty criminals, and intelligence services people brainwash them, and then they're used in these operations. So I think that Macron is trying to benefit politically. He's had a very hard time because people see who he is. The Yellow Vest movement has awakened so many French people. And so now they're trying to do a divide and conquer movement to try to convince ordinary French people that the enemy is actually the Muslims rather than this New World Order banksters cabal that Macron fronts for. So he's distracting people from the real villains, and he is the villain.
Sure. Thank you very, very much, gentlemen. Kevin Barrett, author and Middle East expert, gives Skype Adam Madsen. I also like to thank the time Imam Muhammad Ali Elahi gave us, director with Islamic House of Wisdom out of Michigan. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much. Let's move on to another story.